I apologize for any mistakes. My parents divorced when I, 17-year-old female, was 12 because my mother was cheating on my dad with my now stepfather, Carl. My dad has a demanding job, and my mother used it against him during the custody procedure. So until I was 15, I could only see my dad one weekend every 2 weeks. It changed when my dad went to court to challenge it, and it changed to 50-50. My dad never said anything bad about my mother to me, but my mother has tried to turn me against him and his side of the family. She has tried to get me to stay with her on my dad's birthday, or Christmas, or to celebrate Father's Day with Carl, her and her step-siblings Leah, 19-year-old female, Zoe, 17-year-old female, and Tim, 13-year-old male. She tried to push me to have a relationship with them when we have nothing in common, always saying we are siblings instead of step-siblings. She declined invitations to parties from my friends because my step-siblings weren't invited, and always tried to call me and Zoe twins. She would also get mad if I corrected her. I don't have anything against my step-siblings, but we are not close. We are cordial, and I help Tim with his homework, but they don't see me as a full sister, and neither do I. She also took us to family therapy, where I basically had to listen to them for hours telling me that I should stop caring so much about my dad when I have a better family with them, and even tried to push the idea of Carl adopting me. We stopped going to therapy after the therapist took my side. She even forced me to take down the pictures I had of my dad and my dad's family on the walls of my bedroom, and tried to take away the plushie my dad bought for me when I was a baby. As a result, I dislike my mother, and I am not at all close to her. I don't talk to her about anything, and she isn't invited to any of my events or anything. I also didn't talk to her at all about colleges. I will be going out of the country for college, because my dad has to go to France for his company, and since I am fluent in French, and I always wanted to study abroad. When my mother found out, after hearing me talk on the phone with the school, she got really mad and told me there was no way I would go, that she wanted me to stay in the state. We argued, and she told me that if I go to France, we will not see each other often, and that I should stay with my real family. I told her that she isn't my real family, my dad is, and I called my dad to pick me up. I am at my dad's right now, and my stepsister called me to tell me that I am a horrible person for saying that to my mother. My dad thinks I might have been too harsh, but he says that I don't have to apologize if I don't want to. I don't know what to do, and I wonder if I am the jerk. Now, for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. Totally unacceptable. She has continuously tried to manipulate and control you, disregarding your feelings and preferences. You have every right to define your own family and prioritize the relationships that are meaningful to you. You were not too harsh in asserting your feelings, and you have the right to stand up for yourself. Focus on building a healthy and supportive environment for yourself. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Your mom was homewrecker number 1 here, and she is talking about family when it didn't seem to matter much before. You have no reason to listen to her hypocrisy on the subject. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a rough couple of weeks since my last post, and I've got to say, a lot has happened. I apologize for any mistakes, as I'm still reeling from the events. After my last update, things escalated quickly. My mom tried to make amends by inviting me to a family dinner, saying it was an attempt to start fresh. I agreed, thinking maybe it was time to bury the hatchet, but boy was I wrong. The dinner started off tense, with everyone walking on eggshells. My step-siblings were there, and the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words. Then, out of nowhere, my mom dropped a bombshell. She announced that she and Carl were expecting a baby. The room went silent. I could see the shock on everyone's faces, especially my step-siblings, who had no idea either. This revelation brought back memories of when my parents first split up. My mom had always been the type to seek attention, and it seemed like she was using this announcement to pull me back into her orbit. It felt like a ploy, and I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal from when she first cheated on my dad. The dinner quickly turned into a heated debate about family and loyalty. My mom tried to guilt me into staying for college, saying that I should be there for the new baby. But I stood my ground, reminding her that my plans to go to France with my dad were set in stone. A few days later, my stepsister Leah confronted me. She accused me of tearing the family apart and being selfish. I was taken aback because Leah and I had always had a silent understanding of each other's positions in this blended family. We weren't close, but we respected each other. This confrontation was out of character for her, and it made me realize how much my mom's manipulation had affected everyone. Meanwhile, My dad was dealing with his own issues at work. His company was facing a major crisis, and he was under a lot of stress. Despite this, he always made time for me, showing the stark contrast between him and my mom. He never used his problems as an excuse to neglect our relationship. As the days passed, the tension at my mom's house grew. Zoe, who had always been the peacemaker, tried to stay neutral, but even she was struggling to keep the peace. Tim, the youngest, seemed lost in the chaos, and I found myself feeling sorry for him. I remembered how he used to look up to me when I helped him with his homework, and it pained me to see him caught in the middle of this mess. The final straw came when my mom tried to take away my phone, claiming it was a distraction from family time. It was the same phone my dad had given me, filled with memories and messages from him. I couldn't believe she was still trying to erase my dad from my life. I called my dad to pick me up, and this time, I knew I wouldn't be coming back. As I packed my things, I found the plushie my dad had bought for me when I was a baby. It was a small, worn-out thing, but it held so much sentimental value. My mom had tried to take it away before, but I had managed to keep it hidden. Leaving the house, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I was free from the constant battles, but I also knew that my relationship with my mom and step-siblings would never be the same. Now, I'm at my dad's house, preparing for the move to France. It's bittersweet. I'm excited for the new chapter in my life, but I can't help but feel a pang of sorrow for the family I'm leaving behind. My stepsister called me again, this time in tears, apologizing for her earlier outburst and wishing me well. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. My dad, despite his own troubles, has been my rock. He's supported my decision to study abroad and has been helping me with the preparations. We've grown even closer through this ordeal, and I'm grateful for his unwavering love and support. As for my mom, our last conversation was a shouting match that ended with me declaring that I needed to live my own life. She hasn't tried to contact me since, and I'm left wondering if she ever will. My late wife left son a fortune, but new wife wants it for her daughter's medical bills, so I say no and we leave, but her ex sues and loses, then tries to fix his gambling mess. I, 40 years old, have a son, 15 years old, with my late wife Cassie. Cassie died when our son was 5. She was left a large sum of money before her death because her death would have been preventable, but her medical team was negligent. She used the money to clear any medical debts, pay for her funeral, and the rest went into a savings account for our son. I have saved since, but not as significantly as the money already there from Cassie. I remarried when my son was 11. My current wife Andy has a daughter who is now 11 years old. Before we ever got married, we had discussed finances, the kids, and how our blended family would work. We spoke about savings for our kids. My stepdaughter has hardly any, because her father cleared it out during his and Andy's marriage, and refused to contribute to it again. So she started a new one. Andy was aware my son had a lot of money in his, but she does not have access to it, and I do not have access to my stepdaughters. We felt it was better to keep saving individually for our bio kid, and we agreed not to interfere. But everything else is together, so paying medical stuff, household stuff, extracurricular stuff, etc. Everything with that was fine until September. The brief description is, my stepdaughter was born with some medical problems. These problems require daily meds and surgery on occasion. In September, my stepdaughter had a surgery that went badly and created more problems. Andy found my stepdaughter a new doctor. This new doctor discovered a further complication that required a new and costly medication in the short term and a big surgery to correct. The surgery costs a lot, but we would pay it off eventually. This is when Andy suggested asking my son if we could pay the cost directly from his savings. I told her no. She told me if I explained that it needs to happen and he will still have plenty, it won't be an issue. I told her it would be, and that money is for my son, not for us. Not for anyone but him. Andy went and asked my son anyway, and without letting me know. He told her no, and she raged at me, which is how I found out. I told her she crossed the line. She told me it's easy for me to say when my son isn't the one living with medical problems. I told her that did not give her the right to ask my son, who is still a child, for money. Things got so heated that my son and I moved out because Andy and I did nothing but fight, and she then went on to say some crazy things, like my son hates her daughter and wants her to die. Andy's parents have interjected now and called me out for refusing to alleviate the stress of medical bills for Andy and my stepdaughter by taking money I did have access to. Andy also said, I showed how little I care for my stepdaughter. I told her we were still going to pay it, so I don't know what she's talking about. But she and her parents called me an butt. I'm still furious she went to my son and asked for money after I said no. Am I the idiot though? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Andy's parents have interjected now and called me out for refusing to alleviate the stress of medical bills. No offer of help, just an expectation that a child will pay for their grandchild. Andy suggested asking my son if we could pay the cost directly from his savings. Not borrow the money, just take it. Andy went and asked my son anyway, and without letting me know. No. Comment 2. Not the idiot. It isn't your money to give. End of. Period. Your wife is an AH for disrespecting you by going to your son herself after you said no. That is a huge red flag and would definitely be a hill to die on. As for her parents, they need to mind their own business. The entitlement in that family is strong and something I wouldn't want to be a part of. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a busy month, and I've got some updates that I think you'll find pretty interesting. So, after Andy and I had that huge fight, things didn't exactly cool down. We were living separately, my son and I in a small apartment, trying to keep things as normal as possible. Andy was still pushing for us to use my son's savings for her daughter's surgery, and her parents were backing her up every step of the way. It was a mess. But here's where things get even more complicated. Remember how I mentioned that Andy's ex-husband cleared out their daughter's savings? Well, turns out he's been having some financial troubles of his own. Big ones. He came crawling back, asking Andy for help. Andy, being the kind-hearted person she is, wanted to help him out. But with her daughter's medical bills piling up, she didn't have the funds to do so. Meanwhile, my son was feeling pretty down about everything. He missed his stepsister, and despite the tension, he didn't like seeing Andy stressed out. He's a good kid, always thinking about others, but I reminded him that the money was for his future, and he seemed to understand that. Now, here's the jaw-dropping moment you've been waiting for. Andy's ex-husband, in a desperate move, decided to sue us. Yes, you read that right. He claimed that since Andy and I were married, our assets were combined, and therefore, he was entitled to some of the money from my son's savings account to support his daughter. It was a ridiculous claim, but it meant lawyers and court dates and a whole lot of drama. Andy was mortified. She had no idea he was going to do this, and she was furious with him for dragging her family through the mud. She apologized to me and my son for everything, saying she never should have let things get this far. We started talking again, trying to figure out how to deal with her ex and his ludicrous lawsuit. As for the surgery, Andy's daughter did end up getting it. An anonymous donor stepped in at the last minute and covered the costs. We still don't know who it was, but Andy was in tears when she found out. It was a huge relief for everyone. But the story doesn't end there. During all this chaos, I started digging into Andy's ex-husband's past. I had a hunch that something wasn't adding up. And boy, was I right. It turns out, he had a history of gambling and had racked up a mountain of debt. That's why he cleared out his daughter's savings in the first place. And now, he was trying to use us to bail him out. The court date came, and it was a disaster for him. The judge saw right through his claims and dismissed the case. Andy's ex was ordered to pay our legal fees, and he left the courtroom looking like he'd been hit by a truck. But here's the twist. After the court debacle, Andy's ex had a change of heart. He broke down, admitting to all his mistakes and vowing to get help for his gambling addiction. He started attending meetings and actually began to turn his life around. Andy was cautiously optimistic, and for the first time in a long time, it seemed like there might be a chance for him to rebuild his relationship with his daughter. As for Andy and me, we're taking things slow. We're still living apart, but we're talking and trying to work through our issues. It's not easy, but we both want to do what's best for our kids. And my son, he's been amazing through all of this. He's been supportive of his stepsister and even reached out to Andy's ex to offer some kind words. My stepdad ostracizes me and treats me unfairly. But when they get evicted and beg for my inheritance, I plan to use it for education instead. And then stepsister's secret spending surfaces. I recently turned 18 and received a sizable inheritance worth around $700,000 from my paternal grandparents, being their only living descendant. This includes a 4-bedroom home in Boston, as well as a small 2-bedroom vacation house in California. Several years ago, my mum, 38 years old, married my stepdad, 50 years old, who had 4 kids, 17 years old, 14 years old, 10 years old, from his previous marriage, and they had an additional 2 children, 7 years old, 5 years old together. We also have my step-nephew, 1-year-old, living with us. My stepdad used to be a construction worker while my mum was a homeowner. And although they still worried about money, we lived in a decent house and had a regular working-class upbringing. That said, I didn't get along well with my stepfamily. My stepdad hated the fact that I wasn't related to him by blood, and he constantly ostracized me for being mixed race. I'm half Colombian from my dad's side. I only got £2 allowance per week, even though I had to pay for public transport. I had to share a room, but he turned the sunroom into a bedroom specially for my younger sister, and he wouldn't allow me to try out for a scholarship for a private school, even though I could have easily passed because it would be unfair to my siblings. Around 2 years ago, my stepdad got arrested for something awful, and after all the financial problems that followed, including spending money on the new baby after he was born with birth defects, he's fine now. Don't worry. We ended up getting evicted. We had to move into a 2-bedroom council apartment, with me sharing the largest bedroom with the 2 eldest sisters and my nephew. My other siblings sharing the other bedroom, and my mum sleeping in the living room. My mum works 2 minimum wage jobs and made me get a second job too, even with my exams coming up. Yet she's fine with my stepsister staying home all day after dropping out of school. We can afford necessities like food and heating, but we've had to cut back on basically everything else. After I got my inheritance, my mum begged me to use it to help out our family, and I refused. The thing is, my father and his parents were American, while the rest of my family are English and don't even have passports, so it's not like they can live in the property. I plan on using the money to pay for university and afterward travel the world and experience new cultures. I've always loved animals, and I want to follow my passions and open a cat cafe without having to worry about money. My family wants me to sell the property I inherited and buy a house in this country for them to live in, as well as another second house for my sister and her son. I promised I'd help them buy groceries and rent a better apartment, but it shouldn't be my responsibility to take care of them. It was my name in the will, not theirs. My stepsister is especially furious with me and says it's unfair that I get a fairy tale ending, even though her life was harder than mine. Everyone thinks I'm wasting my money on my wants and ignoring their needs. Am I the idiot? Edit. Sorry for the confusion. I'm not great at finance. The $700,000 is comprised of savings, investments, and other assets. It doesn't include the properties. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. For years, you have been the lowest priority, the family punching bag. It's time to make this all about you. Study, travel, and open that cat cafe. To repeat myself, open that cat cafe. I can't say this enough. If this is a fairy tale, then it's Cinderella, and you didn't need a prince for your happily ever after. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You have already said you would help out with things like groceries and renting a better place, which is really kind and generous of you. At the end of the day, it's your money, and you're sensible to be investing it in your future and dreams. Best of luck. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a tense couple of weeks, and I've got some major updates for you. So, after I stood my ground about not selling the properties, things at home got even tenser. My mum's been working herself to the bone, and I've been helping out with groceries like I promised. But my stepsister, let's call her Sarah, has been on a warpath. She's been spreading rumors about me to the rest of the family, saying I'm hoarding the inheritance and living it up while they suffer. Now, here's where things get interesting. Remember how I mentioned my stepdad got arrested? Turns out, before all that went down, he had a secret stash of money from some shady deals. Sarah found out about it and has been using it to fund her not-so-secret shopping sprees. She's been playing the victim, but in reality, she's been blowing through cash like there's no tomorrow. Meanwhile, I've been doing my research and found out that the vacation house in California is worth way more than I thought. It's in a prime location, and the value's shot up in the past few years. I've been contacted by a real estate agent who's got buyers lined up and ready to make offers. But here's the kicker. My mum found out about Sarah's secret stash and confronted her. It was a full-blown showdown in our tiny living room, with accusations flying and Sarah finally breaking down and admitting everything. She's been feeling guilty about it, especially since she's seen how hard our mum's been working. In the midst of all this drama, my youngest half-sister, let's call her Emily, has been a little detective. She's only 7, but she's sharp as a tack. Emily overheard Sarah talking about the money and told me in secret. She's always felt closer to me than the others, maybe because we're both kind of outsiders in the family. Now, I've been trying to keep a low profile, focusing on my exams and planning for university. But with the revelation about the vacation house's value, I've been thinking about selling it and using some of the money to help my family move to a better place. Not because I owe them, but because it's the right thing to do. But wait, there's more. Just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, my stepdad's lawyer shows up. Apparently, he's been released on parole and wants to make amends. He's got a job lined up and is asking for a second chance with my mum and the family. Everyone's in shock, and my mum's torn about what to do. As for me, I've been getting closer to one of my stepbrothers. Let's call him Mike. He's the 14-year-old, and we've been bonding over our shared love for animals. He's been really supportive of my cat cafe dream, and even started sketching some logo ideas for fun. But here's the twist that's got my head spinning. The real estate agent who's been helping me with the vacation house, turns out she's my stepdad's sister. I had no idea, and she's been keeping it a secret because she didn't want it to affect our professional relationship. She's actually been trying to get me the best deal possible to help out her brother's family without me knowing. So now, I'm sitting on a potential goldmine with the vacation house, my family's dynamics are shifting like crazy, and I've got a newfound ally in my step-aunt. It's a lot to process, and I'm just trying to figure out my next move. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.